Atlantic City, the Las Vegas of the Northeast, known for its casinos, scenic boardwalks, beautiful luxury hotels, and much more. It's a high priority destination for pretty much anybody. If you live in the Big Apple or New York City, you can get there today by hopping on an Amtrak Northeast Regional out of Penn Station to Philadelphia. Then you could board the NJ Transit Atlantic City train across the platforms that takes you to Philly to Atlantic City in just 90 minutes. But that's only today. Back in the 1930s, the Central Railroad of New Jersey ran a famous train that many people called the shore's finest train. It was called the Blue Comet. It ran as a straight shot from Jersey City alongside the Jersey Shore and terminated gloriously at the Atlantic City Union Station with various stops in between. But after the train's discontinuance in 1941, the main line slowly deteriorated and only the occasional single, couple, or triplet of Bud RDCs operated by the Pennsylvania Reading Seashore Lines took commuters there. It was this way until 1984 when NJ Transit took over commuter operations, but the line didn't get fully upgraded until 1989, and that's when Amtrak decided to step in. Now, in the late 80s and early 90s, Amtrak was in major financial disorder. A handful of routes across the country have been discontinued left and right to save money, but when Amtrak heard about Atlantic City needing a better way of rail transport, they instantly stepped in. After spending some leftover money from Northeast Corridor funds, they decided to help NJT out and rehabilitate the Atlantic City line entirely. Thus, on May 23, 1989, Amtrak's Atlantic City Express had been brought to life. This train was designed to provide service to gamblers and vacationers. The train made a single local stop on the Atlantic City line. Amtrak completely renovated the Lindenwold station, and it served as a stop until July of 1994, when the local stop was changed to the new Cherry Hill station due to low ridership at Lindenwold. It was conceived as a limousine on rails, ushering gamblers from points north, south, and west to the casinos of Atlantic City. Amtrak also operated some through services from Atlantic City to Richmond, Virginia, and Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. In June of 1990, Amtrak entered into a partnership with Midway Airlines to operate trains from Philadelphia International Airport to Atlantic City via SEPTA. However, this service was short-lived, as Midway Airlines went bankrupt in the summer of 1991. The train mainly consisted of an Amtrak F40PH locomotive with 3 to 4 ampletes behind it, followed by a Metroliner cab car so that push-pull service can be possible. All it really was when it came to catering was an onboard cafe. That's really it. With the newly refurbished line all the way to Philly, any passenger train could operate at speeds between 80 and 90 miles per hour, whether it be Amtrak or NJ Transit. It had various different numbers rather than just 2, like a traditional Amtrak train, because of its through services to Springfield, Richmond, Washington, D.C., New York City, and Harrisburg. When the full line opened from Atlantic City to Philadelphia in 1989, stops were built for the local NJ Transit trains, with the Atlantic City Express only stopping at one of them, Lindenwold, which was rebuilt specifically to serve both transit companies. Though this sounds like a splendid way to get people to Atlantic City again, which it wasn't always like that. Shortly after the train's inauguration, it never came close to hitting its hoped-for ridership numbers. In another effort to gain more riders, service was extended to Springfield, Massachusetts and New Haven, Connecticut. Even then, most passengers traveled between New York and Philadelphia rather than continue on to Atlantic City. Amtrak also had to compete with a number of bus lines offering discounted rates at casinos. Although the trains were moderately successful, Amtrak still deemed that the poor showing of riders was not enough to warrant train service, and plans were made to discontinue the line. The line had lost an average $4.6 million per year since its inception, and its 1994 average daily ridership of 586 was about half of the total 3 years earlier. Clearly, the route had rolled snake eyes. Company officials felt that the casino industry had not marketed the service strongly enough, but conceded that Amtrak may have misread the market. Burgeoning bus service proffering casino discounts had siphoned potential customers. Another factor may have been that the Atlantic City Express was never a true express. All trains stopped in Philadelphia, where they left the main track for the spur to the shore. When the famous Blue Comet brought New Yorkers to Atlantic City prior to the Second World War, the train made a number of stops along the way, but its route roughly paralleled the coastline. Those tracks were no longer operative, however, and the latter-day Atlantic City Express could reach the seashore only by switching to Philly. Indeed, many of the riders eventually regarded the daily service out of New York merely as an extra train to Philadelphia, and sometimes cheaper as well. As federal subsidies were frozen and corporate reconstructing took hold in 1995, Amtrak invited those states affected by route cutbacks to make up the shortfall. Several responded with money, including Pennsylvania on behalf of its Harrisburg line. Ultimately, though, there was no jackpot for the so-called Gamblers Express, which was as dead as a slot machine pay line with all the different routes. But the romance of Rail Express, no matter how fitful the route, was gone. The gamble had not paid off. The Atlantic City Express was off the rails by April 1st of 1995. Gleaming under a cloudless sky, Amtrak train number 653, the last Amtrak train from New York to Atlantic City, creaked out of Penn Station on Saturday of April Fool's Day of 1995. The four linked cars gathered speed through the tunnel underneath the Hudson River and bulleted through the marshlands of Secaucus. They downshifted and crawled into Newark as the Imperial Chrysler Building silvered on the receding Manhattan skyline. They threaded their way to Isellin's Metro Park Station and onward to Trenton and Philadelphia's Grand 30th Street Station, where two-thirds of the passengers detrained and climbed stairs to Philly surface streets. No gamblers. A handful of new riders came aboard for the trip to Atlantic City, which retraced the artery that brought the first wave of city visitors to a new seashore mecca a century and a half ago. Atlantic City was once again severed from any luxurious trains for the next decade, but don't worry, not all hope is lost here. Initially, there were worries that NJT would also cease operations as Amtrak had been helping maintain the track and NJT would be forced to buy its own fueling facility. However, NJT reluctantly opted to stay as the line was the transit agency's only commuter line in South Jersey. For the time being, a target of a $1 million subsidy reduction was set in March of 1996. NJT eventually extended service to Philadelphia via Amtrak's 30th Street station, and a new station facility was built in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. Ridership increased and NJT decided to maintain the line after declaring that the line's ridership had met the target set for it. With the success of NJT's commuter service to Atlantic City, talks about direct service to New York were discussed. In June of 2006, the Board of New Jersey Transit accepted a plan for an express service between Atlantic City, New Jersey, and New York Penn Station in Midtown Manhattan for a 3-year trial initially slated to begin in 2007. Newark Penn wasn't initially intended as a stop, but it would be added during the planning stages. Because of delays in acquiring the cars and preparing the needed motive power, the service did not fully begin until February of 2009. This ACES, or Atlantic City Express service, ultimately failed due to low ridership and being too expensive, literally. Fares were between $30 to $70 with an additional $20 upgrade to first class. Yes, this train had first class. It was also very impractical because it was supposedly a non-stop journey, but they had to kind of add a stop at Newark Penn Station. To put it simply, the ACES could have easily succeeded, but it costed too much, and casinos got tired of paying. Therefore, the train discontinued in 2012, just shy of 3 years after its inauguration. But don't worry, that doesn't mean Atlantic City never got trains again. Like I said earlier, NJ Transit established their Atlantic City line service in 1989 between Philadelphia and Atlantic City, and Amtrak's Atlantic City Express simply shared the line with NJ Transit. The line is still regularly active today with about 14 round trips daily. It mostly uses GP40PH locomotives as their main source of power, but other locomotives like PL42ACs and L45DPs find their way onto the line a couple times. The Atlantic City line has these diesels truly stretching its legs, with them regularly reaching speeds of up to at least 80 miles per hour, making them some of the fastest diesels in the Northeast United States, while most of NJ Transit's diesel lines cannot let them go faster than 70. But anyway, Atlantic City today still has a widely used train line with really good daily ridership and on-time records. At least that's still going. The Atlantic City Express is really something to remember. It sucks that low ridership got the best of that train, but to be frank, most of the discontinued by the 90s Amtrak routes suffered the same, which is what led to their demise as well. Point is, Atlantic City will never truly see a luxury train again, but it at least has fast enough trains that are good enough for commuters. A tourist destination as famous as Atlantic City should have had its own fancy and luxurious train the whole time, but it was just never meant to be. But as I said a few times already, at least trains still go to Atlantic City. Thanks for watching another Forgotten Railway Stories video. Remember to like and subscribe for more future content coming your way. Thanks for watching everyone, and have a great day. Peace.